Today we're going to review Old Fizz's President's Choice. Now, is this bottle worth the hype and the FOMO? Let's stay tuned to find out. Welcome back to the Bourbon Retriever, where I go on the wild, hunt bourbon, and bring it back for you. Except today, this bottle is provided by my Patreon, John. I'm really excited to try this bottle. These single barrels are supposed to be some of the best products that Old Forester puts out. Now, Old Forester President's Choices are all single barrels. They've roughly put out somewhere in the high 40s currently. They have put out a lot more recently. Typically, that gets me a little worried that whenever you do a larger release, there's the fear that the quality is going to go down. However, I have hope for these releases because the age statement on them are actually going up. When they first started doing these, they're roughly in the 6 to 8 year age statement. However, the last couple of bottles they've released have been 11 years old, which is closer to what they put out for their birthday bourbons. The proof point on this one is 110. That's a nice middle ground between what their black labels are, which are 100 proof single barrels, and their blue labels, which are their cask strength single barrels. Another cool little history about these bottles is they are picked by the Brown family, who own the Brown-Forman conglomerate of Jack Daniels, Woodford, and Old Forester. So that's a cool little history about this bottle, is that it is picked from one of the legacy generation family members of that family. Now, these Old Forester President's Choices are rather difficult to get. They do, like I said, they're single barrels, so there aren't many of them that they've done. The ways you can get them are they do random drops at their distillery. It's random times a day, random days of the week, and those randomly drop one. That can be very hard to get, especially if you don't live in the area. Just being at the distillery when one drops. In fact, 2 years ago when I went to Kentucky, I was doing a tour at Old Forester, and 15 minutes before my tour, they actually sold the Old Forester President's Choice, and I missed it by 2 people. If I had gotten there just 5 minutes, even a minute earlier, I could have gotten it, but it just happens to be my luck that day that I wasn't able to get it. The other ways you can get it is they do release them to some stores in Kentucky, but that's also very limited. If you go on their higher end tour, I think it's about $100, you have the chance to buy one of a select of products. I think it's currently an Old Forester single barrel, the birthday bourbon, the 1924, and the President's Choice, or it might just be 117. I forget which ones are on the list, but if you go on that tour, you get a chance to buy one of those bottles. You don't have the choice to buy all of them. It's just whatever they offer that day. Typically, I think lately it's been the 117s or the 1924. And then I've heard some stories of people who've done barrel picks. If you go and do a barrel pick around the time these are releasing, sometimes if you want a barrel pick, you might get lucky enough to get one of these. But with that, let's go ahead and jump into the review. Cheers. Okay, I'm getting the very traditional Brown-Forman notes. A lot of that caramel, vanilla sweetness that you get in bourbon generally, but the ones that Brown-Forman known is specifically, that tone of caramel and vanilla is exactly what I'm getting here. Now, this is much better than the blue labels. A lot of times when I smell the blue labels, it is just pure ethanol in my nose. This is probably closer to some of the best black label picks I've had, the aroma I'm getting on this bottle. And another thing is sticking out to me wildly on the aroma here. There's no super pronounced note that's just blowing me away. Nothing off-putting either. It's just very traditional bourbon notes. Now onto the palate. All right, that is very, very odd. I got a peanut note, which I typically get on Jim Beam products. I don't think I've ever gotten that peanut note on Old Forester. Now, these are single barrels and they were selected for a reason. So maybe when they picked this barrel, they loved that note. This isn't like a peanut shell or peanuts, like kind of a young, youthy bourbon. It's more of like a pecan, a little more soft, brittle, mature. Maybe a pecan that was drizzled in caramel and then toasted a little bit in the oven. That is closer to the nut note I'm getting. Yeah, the proof is definitely showing up there. It's definitely more proofier than the black labels, but it's nowhere near the blue labels where it's just straight ethanol. I think it's a good amount of proof there to help it linger, give you that nice viscosity mouthfeel. On the finish though, I'm not getting a lot of flavor. I'm more of just getting that tingliness on my tongue from proof. What I want in a finish is where you're getting that flavor linger and linger and linger. Hey, before I get into my final review of the Old Forester President's Choice Single Barrel, if you're enjoying this content, subscribe to this channel. That way you don't miss any content going forward. I have a couple of great videos coming out from different huntings, different reviews. You're not gonna wanna miss it. In addition, if you're enjoying this content, consider supporting the channel through my Patreon. There have been a lot of costs, whether it be running the website, getting my StreamYard account, which did no idea how expensive that was, buying different types of equipment, the mic, lights. It is just slowly adding up over time. So any help you can provide to help this channel to keep growing would be super appreciated. My review of the Old Forester President's Choice. Should you buy it, do a bar pour, pass, get, backups of them. I personally would say for this particular single barrel, I probably would pass, which hurts to say. I think this tastes very similar to just a nice generic black label pick. And you can get the black label picks for like 70, 60 bucks. This is like $200 if you find it MSRP. So I could get almost 3 black labels for one of these. I think I'd rather have that. But the issue is all of these are single barrels. Just because I don't like this one doesn't mean I'm not gonna like this one. In fact, my first President's Choice I was able to try from Zach over at Bourbon Kingdom. If you have not checked out his channel, go check it out. He has a nice wealth of knowledge, lives right down in Kentucky, has access to a ton of great bottles. And he was generous enough to let me try President's Choice because I had never had one before. And I'm telling you, I forget what bottle it was, but that was probably top 10 whiskey for me. I was absolutely in love with it, and it's caused me to go on the hunt, and eventually I did get my own bottle. So given that they're all single barrels, if you see one of these at MSRP, if you're lucky enough to be at Old Forester and do the drop, I would buy it, and just trust that Brown-Forman knows what they're doing, and the one you're getting is gonna be great. But for me, given the variedness up here, that now I've had one I liked and one I didn't like, I don't think it's something I'm gonna trade into with the secondary pricing on these bottles. There are many other bottles I'd rather trade into or just keep the capital that it would take to acquire those. So for me, this is not one that I'm going to be going out and searching for at the secondary prices. Now, if you see it at a bar for a bar pour, I would say anything under maybe 40 bucks with how just prices are these days. They're getting ridiculous. I think just if you've never had one, you want to try and see what they're like, what Brown-Forman can be, especially if you are a Brown-Forman fanboy. You got to realize, figure out what distilleries you love and then spend up at that distillery. So if you're a Buffalo Trace fan, if you go to a bar and they have any of the BTACs, consider spending up for that if that is the profile you love. If you are a Wild Turkey fan and you're somewhere and they have a ton of the Master Keeps, consider spending up for that. Similarly, if you're an Old Forester fan, you see the Birthday Bourbon or President's Choice, that would be an area to spend up. Everyone has different palates, so you need to understand what your profile, what you like, and consider spending up in those areas because that's where you'll maximize your dollar per what you'll probably enjoy. Plus, if you really enjoy that bar pour, then you know exactly which barrel to go out there and hunt for on the secondary stores to get the bottle that you want the most. So that's my review of the Old Forester President's Choice. If you're enjoying this content before you head out, check out this video or this one. And until the next time, cheers.